teachers, here is a follow-up video to accompany the training that we had last night. So this is on groups and how to create groups and how you can utilize those groups to accommodate for ALPs, IEPs, learning holes in your students' learning. So the first thing we have to do is create the group. And in order to create the group, we are going to click on our people icon right down here on the course card. And then we're going to click on the wrench. And we're going to click on manage groupings. Then we're going to add a grouping. I'm going to name this group the zebras. The next item down is a drop box or a drop-down menu that we need to change to fixed number of groups. That's going to throw the next line into 0, and then for the very last drop down, we need to select none. And then we're going to say generate. That's going to give us our little add group icon up here in the upper right. We're going to click on that, and that's going to put a checkbox next to all of these students' names. I'm going to select my student sample 2 and my student sample 3. These are my kiddos who I'm going to put in a group together. Perhaps it's that they share similar IEP accommodations or ALP goals, so on and so forth. So I'm going to checkbox those, and I'm going to click Save. Now I've generated my group. So now I can come into the editor, which, as you know, is where we manipulate the course. I'm going to click on Editor. And now I'm going to come over to group settings, and I'm going to talk about group settings for a second. In group settings, we can control visibility and due dates for the students in that group. So I'm going to use Unit 1 as my example. In Unit 1, again, maybe these are IEP kiddos, and I don't necessarily need them to do the writing assignment in order for them to demonstrate their learning to me. I'm just going to have them do the text questions. So I'm going to hide the writing assignment just from my zebras, just from that group. Then maybe the discussion is not necessarily relevant for my IEP kiddos. Maybe they're really nervous because their writing skills are not that great, so to put their voice out there in front of the whole class is causing some anxiety. So on and so forth. So maybe I'm going to hide that Unit 1 discussion as well. So now I've hidden those items. But then maybe another accommodation these kiddos have is extended time. And having that auto zero populate is again causing some anxiety, even though we have the allow late rule of always. So I'm actually going to flip the property here into due date. And now I can see the due date for all of the students in the class. So this is the due date that I have from the drag and drop scheduler. But I want to change this due date to give these IEP kiddos a little bit more time. So instead of having it due on the 25th, I'm actually going to have it due on the 1st. That gives them 2 extra days before the 0 would ever come in. You, of course, in your courses are going to have this set already. I'm just in the sandbox, which is why I had to click it. And then I'm going to save it. And that changed the due date just for the kiddos that I have in zebras. So then I'm going to change the due date from the 26th to the 28th. Give them a little bit of extra time and save. And so on, changing those dates just for those IEP kiddos. The next thing I want to point out is that in the activity list, I'm going to pause myself for a second. The functionality that I'm going to show you right now is only going to be for those teachers who have the LMS Embedded Quizzes that have the icon with that check mark. Okay? So Edmentum folks, Mastery Test folks, you don't have this functionality in the LMS because it's already built into Edmentum's world. The student needs a retry or, wants an extra attempt on that mastery test. He or she just needs to open the tutorial, work back through it, and then the mastery test unlocks. But for those of us with these LMS embedded quizzes, we can actually select all of them. And we can come into bulk edit. And we have our people icon right here. So I can take it down to zebras 1. And I can change number of attempts in bulk for my IEP kiddos. So maybe I'm only giving 1 try to every other student. Maybe I want to give 3 tries to my IEP kiddos. Or what the heck, maybe I want to give them unlimited tries. So I'm going to check unlimited and say that I understand and update that. And now I have given just my zebras unlimited attempts on those quizzes. So that's one functionality. Edmonton folks, all folks really, depending on the type of assignment, on the type of file, you can use the bulk edit for other items. So you can checkbox all the assignments, bulk edit. Maybe you want to remove the due date. Maybe you want to change the grading category, those things. You can play with those. So you can use the bulk edit with just your group. Then the next thing I want to show you is over here in the syllabus. Again, this is going to be for LMS Embedded Quizzes. If I open that Unit 1 quiz in the editor, the single item editor, by clicking on the pencil, then over here in settings, I can change number of attempts here just by, so again, you got to click your little people guy and say zebras 1. Now see, it's already picking up that I've given unlimited attempts to these kiddos. But maybe I also want to have fewer questions for these students. So my assessment pool right now is set to 15, but maybe for my IEP kiddos, I want to pull that down to 10 questions. Or maybe I even want to pull it down to 5 questions. So just know that with these assessments, the LMS embedded assessments with the checkmark icon, you can change other items based on the group. So maybe also in assessment review, you want to leave this at always for your IEP kiddos because it's a measure of learning if they can remember what the correct answer was based on their incorrect answer, and so on. So then I'm going to back out of here. And the last thing I'm going to show you is how to use that group in the clipboard. So the clipboard icon is right up here. And let's say you are a math teacher and you're noticing that your students are, there's a hole. They lack the skills to be successful in semester 2 because, maybe they came to us from brick and mortar and the brick and mortar didn't quite get to where we are at CDLS. So you're going to drop down your group, and this odd looking split arrow is how you're going to put that group up on the clipboard. And then we're going to say, now they're on the clipboard, we need to give these kids some skills from semester 1, the end of semester 1, because they're really struggling with the start of semester 2. So we have the kiddos on the clipboard, and we're going to search the library. And we're going to come into the Edmonton Content Masters because we're using that math example now. And we're going to come down to geometry because that's the course we're teaching, and we're just really seeing, these couple students struggle. So we're going to click open, and we're going to come into semester 1, and we're going to come into unit 4. And we know from working with the kiddos, maybe having a Zoom room, so on, that, they've really had a hard time with applying the laws and proving the laws. And so we're going to checkbox those 2 things. And then we're going to copy those things into the clipboard. So it's at this point, if you're just trying to do some supplemental learning, maybe you don't want to make them gradable, maybe you're doing some replacing of some tasks, so you do want to make them gradable. In order to make them gradable, you'll check the boxes and then you'll click next. See how that icon changes from blank to stuff on it? Then I'm going to say next. CDLS, we don't run periods, so you won't even have that option. Now, under folder, this is not where the item is going to appear for the student, but you do want to go ahead and select where it's going to be mapped to. So we're going to say Unit 1. If we set a due date, these items are going to populate on the student's to-do list. If we do not set a due date, they will not. I'm going to go ahead and set a due date, and I'm going to say it's due tomorrow. And next, these are the same options that you're used to seeing in that individual settings page in the editor. You're not going to have to really worry about a whole lot of these. If you're working in Edmentum, obviously if it's something handwritten that a student needs to turn in, you're going to select, a document, a single or multiple documents, so you get a drop box. But I'm just going to keep on trucking on. I want it included or calculated. Check out those things as you're going through. And then next, and then I'm going to assign those items. So at that moment, you're feeling good and you're like, oh man, I got it. I got them assigned. But where the heck do I find them? You're going to click on your 3 stacked lines. And you're going to come into that course and the gradebook for that course. And you're going to click on the For Me tab. When you click on For Me up here, you will be able to see those items that you have assigned to those students by clicking on that circle. Then you can edit them if you need to. You can delete them if you need to, so on. And you will see the score show up right here when the student takes that mastery test or otherwise. So then let's say you feel like you're going to use this function a lot and you don't want to have to always go to For Me, just another click. As I've told most of you, I measure my life in clicks now. The fewer the better. So if you're in your gradebook and you're going to use this quite a bit, you can actually populate this column right here, the For Me column, by going into your display options and then clicking that Show Me, checkboxing it and saving it to have the For Me. So then in your gradebook, you would be able to just click on Student Sample 2, and it would take you right to those items that the student has been assigned. As for the gradebook, you will not see a column dedicated in your gradebook for those For Me items, for those Clipboard assigned items. However, if you've made them gradable, the score will calculate into the overall score. So let's say you're not going to have your students do the writing assignment, so you've hidden it from them. That's what it looks like when you've hidden it. But let's say you did give them a For Me item. So that For Me item will come into the overall grade calculation. You just won't see a column. You will only see the score they earned in the For Me. Students in their gradebook, they'll see a line for it. So if we click on Student Sample 2 and go into their gradebook view, right now it's sorted by grading categories, but you can clearly see that in their gradebook, these are the 2 we assigned them, they're going to have lines for those things. So they'll see them in this view. But in order for the student to find them, they're going to click on For Me up here. And then it's going to operate just exactly how they're used to. If it's, an Edmentum mastery test, filling in some of that core content, they'll come into it, they'll take it. The squirrel post should just come right over into your gradebook, or into this area of your gradebook, I should say. If it doesn't, then of course you're going to click your Output Progress Data key. If it is something that needs to be hand graded, you're going to find it in your Needs Grading tab. It's going to show up there, and you can also find it here and click on it and grade it from this area. I also want to mention that you don't have to build a group in order to use the clipboard. You could very simply just select your student. You could filter it by course. I'm working in Lord of the Rings. And then I'm going to select Student Sample 4 for instance, this is a student that is not already in a group for me. And then I can search the library and add those things. You can also, if you have some really fantastic material from your classroom that you believe would be really helpful for that student to polish his or her skills, maybe a Khan Academy video or just a YouTube video in general, you do have these options here. So you can actually assign them something of your very own as well. And then, it'll show up in this area. So that is a brief overview and follow-up to the groups training that we hosted. As always, if you have any questions whatsoever, you know how to find me, and I'm happy to help, as is the rest of the team. So yeah, dig in and let me know how I can help.